Now, have you finished, or actually have you even started your Christmas shopping? I do mine on Christmas Eve, as we've discovered on Sunrise over the last couple of weeks. But today, a poll reveals where are the most festive and the most generous parts of the country. Now, retail expert Claire Rayner is here with us. Hello. Let's start, though, by looking at some of the figures that have been discovered. Here we go. We can have a look at our wall here. Those in Northern Ireland are apparently the best at keeping control of their costs, with over a fifth saying that they never overspend at Christmas. Alternatively, 34% of those from the northwest of England admit that they often or always exceed their budget, which is interesting because I'm from the northwest of England, from Chester, so what does that say about me? But it's fascinating, isn't it, that depending on where you live, depends on how much you spend.
I think that's got a lot to do with the social network you have, your friends and family, and how you all sort of organise your lives. But what is interesting is the difference between the areas that are careful around their budget and those that are overspending, because of course it can put you into quite a difficult position in the coming months after Christmas if you have overspent, tightening the belts, finding it a bit gloomy in January and February, having to pay off credit cards. So it's one to be careful of, I think, for consumers. It
is, and we can look at some other parts of the country now. Glasgow's interesting because Glaswegians spend the most on presents for other people. £500 spent per person, a huge amount of money. And Londoners are the most self-indulgent, spending £126 on treats for themselves. I guess there's something to be said about the pace of life, isn't there, in different parts of the country. I mean, in London, people tend to be extremely busy, working long hours. Maybe in other parts of the country that's not necessarily the case. They can budget a bit better, spend a bit more time thinking about what they're going to buy.
Well, that was quite interesting in the research. We saw that London was termed as last-minute London, with most of the shopping happening in the last week, if not the last day before Christmas. But what was interesting about that was also London had the highest amount of spending going on cards. And maybe that was because they were using credit because they were keeping it all to the last minute and hadn't planned ahead. If you look at the flip side, we look at some of the stats from Wakefield. Wakefield were the most organised. Some of them were shopping between 7 and 12 months in advance. So, of course, that meant they were...
Yes. So they're doing like Christmas shopping twice.
Maybe in sales, effectively, yeah, getting a bargain in January to spend a giveaway next Christmas. But I think what's interesting about Wakefield is that by doing that, it means that less of that spending will hit down at the one moment in time. So it puts less pressure on the people and less pain on the process, where Londoners are actually 40% or more are using credit to finance their Christmas spending.
And I guess we're now living in an online world. Do different parts of the country have different habits when it comes to online spending at Christmas?
Oh yes, there are all sorts of stats behind that as well, showing the dynamic of where people will spend online. Certainly in the more rural areas, you see a lot more online spending where perhaps there isn't a very convenient local offering of good quality retail outlets. So you'll see that there is a high proportion of spending in rural areas through other channels than through the physical outlets. We're also seeing a trend away from getting things delivered to our homes because we like to inspect the products. We're worried about failed deliveries and that awful card on the doormat when we come home and think, oh, I've missed it. So click and collect is a massive trend where we actually transact online but then visit the store to go and acquire the goods, as it were.
So we've seen all these statistics. We've seen how people's lifestyles vary around the country, and that reflects their Christmas shopping habits. What is your suggestion for people who perhaps haven't done their shopping yet? What's your advice?
Well, certainly not to panic, to make a list, to stick to the budget. Take an example from Northern Ireland, because overspending only leads you to have a miserable January. Make a list of who you want to buy for, what you're willing to spend, get some ideas down on paper, do your research, maybe use click and collect so that you know that you've not got to waste a journey when you go out to the shops. The product you want will actually be there ready for you. Or perhaps just browse and get some gift ideas, but try to go with cash, not cards, and that way you know you won't overspend.
Excellent advice. Follow those canny shoppers in Northern Ireland. Claire Rayner, thank you very much. Nice to see you.
My pleasure.